fast forward 5 months, I believe 5 months, you joined your first competition, right? And came second?
Yeah, yeah. I was an orange belt and just tested for my orange belt. And at
Yeah.
that time, competitions, they had one division for women. That was it, women. And I was nervous, but my instructor made me go into competition. And I remember traveling down to Pittsburgh, which was like about an 8-hour drive from us from Scranton.
Yeah.
Big tournament, and I went in, and there were a lot of black belts, white belts, whatever. And a black belt took first, I took second, and a black belt took third. And at that time, I thought, wow, if I could beat black belts, and I've only been training for 5 months, I am really going to train really, really hard. It's the first time I've ever won anything. First time I brought a trophy home. So that kind
Yeah.
of lit my fire, is to say, I want to keep competing. I want to get better and better and better. And I think from that day on, I just, any tournament I can compete in, I went in.
Yeah. No, when I heard of that, I was like, I mean, first of all, wow. Like, I feel, especially in Hong Kong, I know they're more strict with, if you're a black belt, you can only go up against black belt. If you're, I don't know, blue belt, you can only go within one up, one down. And I remember my friend, I can't remember, maybe it was a green belt, and he was sparring someone who was two belts above him, and he was telling me, he was like, "Oh man, I'm so scared. I'm so nervous. I'm so anxious." And to find out that you were an orange belt fighting black belts, not only competing with them but winning and coming second, like how did you feel in the moment when you're like, "Oh, wow, this is a black belt."
Yeah, I was nervous. It didn't matter. I could have been competed against all white belts. It's still, I was
Mm,
so nervous because it was my first competition. I didn't know what to expect. And, you know, yeah, that's all I can say, is that it gave me a lot of confidence, though. It gave me a lot of confidence that I can be, from that day on, I set a goal that I want to be the best in this sport.
yeah. How how many years did it take from that point on before you became a world champion?
It maybe about 6 or 7 years, because I competed locally. And what
Mm,
happened is, there was a tournament in New Jersey, and it was called the Playboy Tournament. It was really weird. I don't know why I was like affiliated with the Playboy Club, but anyway, all the best of the best were competing at this tournament. And since
yeah.
it was in New Jersey, right next door to Pennsylvania, I went. And at this time, I was competing locally, and we
Mm,
were ranked by Karate Illustrated magazine, and I was number one in my region. But now this is all regions coming together to compete, and I went there and I won. And people were like, "Who is this girl? That she beat the number one girl. Like, who is she?" And
yeah.
then people were talking to me, and they said, "You need to travel the circuit." Right. So then that was in 1980. And then in 1981, my goal was for 5 years to be undefeated in professional competitions. I was only going to like these A-rated events where the best of the best were there. And at that time, they had to have so many of the top competitors to have an A rating. And my goal was to be undefeated for 5 years. So I went to Hong Kong. Even before I did my movies, I trained in Taiwan. I went to mainland China in 1982 to train for a month with the Chengdu Wushu team. And at that time, it was crazy because, China wasn't even open up to foreigners,
Yeah.
so communistic. But I was doing everything I could to be the best and just keep training, training, training. And I reached that goal after 5 years. And then I was going to retire from competition, because when you say 5 times, it's not just competing 5 times, it's competing 5 years. It's 5 years in a row. So
Yeah.
I think during that time, I must have competed over, in that the 5 years, over 400 tournaments. So was undefeated. I thought that was a record nobody's going to be able to beat. And then the Hong Kong movie, I got the offer to do Yes Madam in 1985. With Michelle Yeoh. So it was a great transition to me, because I was like, well, I've devoted like these 5 years to competing professionally. Now,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? And it just kind of, you know, fell right into place that now you're going to transition doing movies.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, because I know if UFC, boxing, five-time champion, usually you have like 30 fights, 40 fights, about 400 around.
Oh yeah,
That
I have like probably about 2,000 trophies, and I had them at my mom's house, and my mom was kind of like, "Well, what am I going to do with these?" Because then I moved to California, and I said, "Well, you got
Yeah.
to keep them." So she actually built a shed to put all these trophies in. And when my mom passed away, and I went home, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all these trophies?" Because then I've had about another. I probably had about 1,000 of them in California, and I had 1,000 here, and they went to a lot of karate schools. Like my friend took his van and he put a ton of them in his school. My other friend from Jersey came down, and some of them were like my mom didn't take care of them, so the shed kind
Yeah.
of got rotted underneath. So some of them we ended up throwing like a big whole scrap metal thing to come and take it away. So yeah, I didn't know what to do with them all then, but yeah, so I'd have to say, I don't know, somewhere on the internet I have pictures of standing in the shed there cleaning it out with all the
I
trophies.
mean, if that is not like, one form of success in a sport, cl- cleaning your own personalized shed filled with trophies, I don't know what would
Funny
be
thing is back
considered.
then, when you won, especially when the grand champion, I have a lot of 6-foot trophies. So they were huge and they were broke and pieces were missing, and some of the plaques were up. But yeah, they gave heavy metal 5 to 6 foot trophies back then. So we're not talking like these little ones. We're talking trophies.
Those little medals, they're about that big.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn. So, okay, so you're five. So you're going from one-time champion, two-time champion, three, four, five times. How did you stay locked in?
Well, at that time, when I went professionally, I was doing forms and I was doing weapons. I used to fight, but up until professional, they were my two favorite things to do. So it was too hard to do all three because I'd be there at 8 in the morning till midnight. So I focused on the forms and weapons. But it was very stressful because you don't want to lose, and everybody's gunning for you. Everybody wanted, like, that would be like such history if someone beat Cynthia Rothrock, So that's why I kept going to different countries and training. And during those 5 years, I trained literally about 6 hours a day, every day. And every time I won, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, it's so easy for me to win," I would go, "Okay, I got to train harder. I got to train harder." So for those 5 years, I didn't do anything but martial arts training, and maybe I did like some gymnastics or some, I did a little bit of dance and a little bit of yoga to get more flexibility. But I wouldn't do anything like skiing because I think, "Oh, what if I break my knee?" And we would go to like travel to a different state or something. I would find the local martial arts school and train there. So all I literally did was sleep, eat, and do martial arts, like during those 5 years, because it was very stressful for me, like, because what if someone did beat me, and I'd be like, I have this goal.
Mhm.
And when we were competing, I would do these moves that were very hard, like very extreme balance, that it's so easy. I could have, like, if I would have just like lost my balance, I would have lost because everybody was waiting to see if someone can beat me after, these 5 years. So I think when I
Mm.
did reach that goal, it was kind of like, "Whew, I did it." you know?
Sigh of relief.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's
But then I missed it. I missed it. Even today, when I just came back, I was at the Long Beach Internationals, right? And I was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I'm watching the competition and I'm going, even like to this day, it's still like, gosh, I'd still like to get back in there and do something.